Welcome to the ETF's Learning Connects live session. Today, our focus is on engaging teachers in education policy making. We are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. Do educators and teachers have a role to play in education policy making? What skills do they need? What have we learned from ETF's activities, and in particular, our Teacher Booster series? Does teachers' involvement in policymaking benefit learners? And what can we learn, especially from teachers' experiences in Georgia and Ukraine? To answer these questions, I am pleased to present our guests. Today, we have with us Marika Zakareishvili, a technical vocational education training and inclusive education expert from Georgia. Welcome, Marika.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
And we have Roman Shyyan, promoter, coordinator of the new National Core Curriculum Development and Implementation process in Ukraine. Welcome, Roman.
Hello, everybody. It's an honor for me to be with you.
Thank you, Roman. And we have Olena Bekh, coordinator for innovative teaching and learning from the European Training Foundation. Welcome, Olena.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
I am Denise Loughran, Communication Officer from the European Training Foundation, and I am your host today. We give a warm welcome to all our guests. Thank you for joining us. Please write in the chat, let us know where you are from, and engage in the conversation. Post your questions, and our experts will be happy to answer them. So, let's get started. I'll start with you, Marika. Please, can you tell us about your experience as an educator, which brought you to work with ETF? Thank you.
First of all, it's a great pleasure for me to be part of this family that we call ETF. I've been working in the education sector for more than 15 years. Mostly I was working on the policy level, with the Ministry of Education. I was very honored to be part of the reform when we started inclusive education in Georgia, and we did our best to let people, vulnerable groups, to enter education system. And I think that it was very, very interesting journey also to build adult education system on vocational education level, and I was leading this process. And I think that education field is very nice place to be and to contribute if you really want to change something in this world. And ETF is the best partner who always fits you with very good ideas and innovations. And that's how we kind of came together. And for example, Teacher Booster, all these different initiatives that we did together really benefits to our education system in Georgia. And it was a big, long, and good journey. And I'm very pleased to be part of it.
Thank you, Marika. I'll turn to you now, Roman, if you could present to us your experience in Ukraine, which of course led you to work with ETF.
Becoming a teacher or educator was a rather natural step for me, but maybe unexpected at the same time, because I just completed my PhD in biophysics at the very early 90s. And then I was involved into education. It was the beginning of Ukrainian independence, and actually a lot of opportunities. I've started to work as a teacher part-time teacher of biology in Physical Mathematics Lyceum here in Lviv. And soon I was invited as a head of in-service teacher training institute, and spent almost half of my life in this business. In-service teacher training education business, and early zeros. I started to work with international projects, and then 6 years ago, I was invited to lead the group of experts from different professional communities to develop new, actually third generation of national core curriculum, national standards of general secondary education, as we call it here, and actually we still work on it. Originally we were intended to develop the whole one document regarding all three stages of general secondary education. Then we were focused on primary education separately, then basic education, and now in pipe is the draft of upper secondary education national core curriculum, and actually then I was invited for teacher booster, and was happy to share our actually Ukrainian case and this experience. All those experience we actually have here. I can add that all those products, I mean, the national core curriculums are based on European approach. Key competence for lifelong learning was the main document which were inspiring us during all the times, and all those documents now we are going to elaborate this green comp which just appeared.
Okay, great. Thank you, Roman. I can see why we've drawn upon the rich expertise of Marika and Roman for ETF's open educational resource, the Teacher Booster. But to explain that better and further, I will ask ETF's expert, Olena Bekh, to introduce the ETF's activities to us. Olena, please, and yourself, of course.
Thank you very much. I would probably start with the Teacher Booster because this is the name which we repeat from the beginning of this online session. And I would like to greet everyone who joined. I hope that we will let you understand what was the best use of Teacher Booster we were planning when we were launching this project. And actually it started during the times when we all were diving into the unknown situation during the COVID lockdown, and we were all feeling vulnerable, including us. I think it's not only teachers who were the main target group of the Teacher Booster, educators in broader sense, all those who support learners in the learning process. And it was both ends, the educators and the learners, who were really put in the situation when they were very much exposed. They suddenly understood that they are lacking some competences, both including the skills, knowledge, and even attitude to themselves and to the external situations which sometimes hit us very hardly. So this was a joint initiative with the Joint Research Center of the European Commission, JRC, and it was this was a project under the Creating New Learning initiative of the ETF. And the Teacher Booster was designed as 8 learning videos, which are pretty long. They are not teasers. They are not 3 minutes long. They are 15 minutes full learning videos. And they have a very solid methodological base behind them. Roman already mentioned that, for example, when the national education reform in Ukraine was working on the new education standard, key competence based, the EU key competence framework for lifelong learning and specific competences which were developed in the recent years were the underlying methodology, the concept behind it. And so the Teacher Booster had learning outcomes for the educators, for adult learners. And it was also the implementation of the approach, which is called storytelling. So it was inspirational TED Talk style videos, and they were supposed to help us to open up the secrets, the professional tricks, and the vulnerabilities and the lessons learned through learning by doing by the educators who were sharing their experience. So this was linked to the JRC's playbook, Entrecom playbook, their publication. And also the whole design of the teacher booster was serving not only the immediate urgent need for supporting the teachers during the lockdown and helping them to use their key competences and their professional qualifications to help the learners to use their key competences, but also it was having a long-term objective to support, to promote the development of key competences for lifelong learning, which proved to be so important during the lockdown and also during the global shocks that we are experiencing now. For example, as we all know, what is going on in the eastern part of Europe around the Russian aggression against Ukraine. So these all key competences and all professional qualities, the skills, the knowledge, and the attitudes of teachers became extremely important during these times.
Thank you, Olena. So now I would like to take another step then in our conversation today and link what you've described to us with the Teacher Booster series to policy. So what does it mean for teachers to engage in policy, and why should they? But just before I do that, I would like to say hello to our guests. We have quite a few people joining us today. We have Sedita from Albania, Joanna from Denmark, Matteo from Berlin, Hegin from Armenia, Lubni from Kosovo, and Tulia from Germany. So welcome to all of you. Please post your questions. We're very happy to hear from you. So going back to our discussion, Marika, you described to us in the introduction your experience with policy. We've also heard about how important it is, skills and competences for teachers. But what does this mean for teachers engaging in the education policy process? And what has been your experience in Georgia?
Thank you. Thank you to everybody who is watching. And if it's interesting, we are more than happy. We were through quite a waves of reforms in Georgia. And 10 years ago, for example, for us, it was very important somehow to seek for international experience. And we are checking different documents from overseas because we wanted to share, really, to understand and share the value that was, for example, European values in education. It was very important for us because the product, children and adults out of it should fit the trend that are accepted all over the world. Later on, so our new documents, there was more expert-made documents, to say so. Of course, so we tried to engage different groups, but later on we became more smarter in this direction. And of course, all these movements, what is happening around drafting policies or developing resources, is for one reason, that the communication and this magic between teacher and the student learner should happen. Yeah. So teachers are the most important persons together with children. That's why I think that the one big step was when we developed new law in vocational education. It was in 2018, and we had general public engagement, to say so, in this process. And of course, different groups of teachers from different sectors, because vocational education is very much sector-based, were involved in discussions, not only face-to-face or somewhere in the building, but we uploaded this document online, and there were big forums where they can kind of write their ideas and their suggestions. So it was very nice trial, to say so. And just recently also we tried to develop new document. It was revision, a specific document how to revise or develop qualifications. We have a special entity which is developing and working on this, and the process showed that some new approaches are needed on vocational education level, and this document also was very participatory and from the teacher side. But generally, it's never enough. These are just examples that I gave to you, but I made small, not research, but I just was curious and was talking with different teachers from the vocational education level, if they feel engaged, to say so, if they feel that they really see the big picture, because for development and for proper education process in practice, it's very important that teachers see the picture and the perspective and horizon. You should never be within the box. Actually, our teacher booster was encouraging us, educators from different parts of the world, to say each other the same, never be within the box. So that when I ask this question to our teachers, I feel that they need more. They need more skills to be engaged, and they need more schemes and channels to be given this opportunity, because still there are room for improvement, even if very key documents, at least in the field of vocational education, are developed with their kind of participation. And also we had very nice example during the Corona time, when newly developed Skills Agency within the Georgia, which is responsible to support vocational education institutions, developed teachers channels, and the purpose was from there to gain their experience and draft new approaches about digitalization in vocational education. So we have good examples, but still we need some improvements, because not all teachers are feeling engaged. Thank you.
Thank you, Marika. Thank you for highlighting the specific needs of teachers coming from vocational education and training. You mentioned also that they need more channels to engage. So I would turn to Roman here. Roman, can you tell us, how can their engagement be improved, educators and teachers, and what specifically can governments do to better engage them?
Okay, so first, I think they just should be invited the government should give them a chance to be engaged, not appointed certain educators and invite them to participate in the development of certain documents, but just announce it, just make a call and give them a chance to apply. So what actually we did when we were started to work on national core curriculum. And then I absolutely agree with Marika that they need to be supported and taught how we should give them a chance to learn how to do that, because they do not have enough experience for certain tasks. Actually, it was what we did with the ETF when started to work on national core curriculum for Ukraine, because the leading experts were invited, and we were learning, elaborating all those curriculum frameworks from Intercomp and BigComp and others. And then the second point is to give them a tool. So, for example, when we were working on the implementation strategy for national core curriculum, we were working with the National Democratic NDI, National Democratic Institutes, and it was public debates which were used as a tool to develop to engage educators for this for development. And last point, which last and not least, is respect their product. So because sometimes we are experiencing when the government actually make final decision by itself. So do not take into account the full product developed by with this participatory approach. To respect the product which was developed together with the engagement of educators and including school subject teachers, and also those who are working with adults.
Okay.
So
Thank you, Roman.
These 3 points are most important.
Yes. If I could just, it's very interesting what you're saying. If I could just also ask, looking at it from another perspective, how do you think teachers can help themselves to engage better in policy making? And do you have some examples that you can share with us?
Maybe it's the rather contradictory example. So there are sometimes we met teachers communities which are had their own hidden agenda. So to defend their security, to do not change too much, to keep traditional approach, traditional list of subjects instead of transformation into new integrated solution, for example. So the challenge for teachers is to step over this biases and to look at the problem with more open eyes and find the benefits from those ideas which they are discussing and afraid of.
Thank you. That's an enlightening answer, Roman, and also it is to be expected for any profession some resistance to change. But how can teachers help each other, maybe? And for this, I'll turn to Olena. If she could share with us from her vast experience, how can teachers help each other to engage better in the policy process, and why should they?
I would say that teachers are naturally set to help each other because they have common interests if we talk about policy. So I think in this case, they belong to the group that needs to participate in policy making in the way possible because they know better what works for them and what works for their learners. So the natural demand is there. But then I was just thinking when I was listening to Marika and Roman, we know each other. We have been knowing each other for a long time. We have been cooperating. And I agree that Roman was saying that teachers have to be invited to the policy process. I think the world is getting a little bit crazy. The world is getting very strange because it's like the balance between teachers and learners. Learners are not anymore just recipients of the knowledge that is transmitted from the teachers. And so the teachers are not anymore the recipients of policies. They make policy themselves by creating different initiatives, by joining forces to do something creatively, something new. But of course, policy and system level is a very difficult level because it requires professionalism. And if you want to make change, it doesn't mean that you know how to do it. So again, coming back to the teacher booster and to the key competence, to knowledge, skills, and attitude. Knowledge, yes, we could get through reading and through different means, but skills, and in particular skills of participating in policy making and policy monitoring, this requires a little bit of practice. So you need to practice participation in policy in order to have the skills to do it effectively. And the last thing, the attitude, is extremely difficult because the attitude includes also how you see yourself, how you believe in your own ability to make impact on policies, etc. And so it's a very tricky thing to develop the right attitude. So I think teachers should share their experience among themselves, and also they should learn from students who are more and more taking learning, the initiative, and develop their agency in lifelong learning.
Okay, thank you, Olena. A question just came to my mind as you were speaking, and perhaps maybe our audience members are wondering. I mean, do you think the policy process is self-evident for teachers? Does that vary from country? Do you think teachers, as part of their training, are aware of the policy process and how they can engage?
No, of course not. And it's not self-evident for anyone who does not, who is not engaged. So I think it's both ways, as Roman was saying. Yes, the governments should be open to embrace the main target groups for the development of relevant policies, and in particular involving teachers and learners into development of teaching and learning policies. But if we would wait until we are invited, sometimes we would wait for the whole life. So I think it's looking for information, trying, engaging with people with similar interests, educators, and also to me, policy making changes is undergoing changes as well recently. So it's much easier now with the new digital means, with the new experiences that we are living through. It's much easier to become visible if you want to make change, and also at the policy level. So even through LinkedIn, through different social media, through any means that are available to us, through YouTube, we can influence the policies.
Okay, so Olena, would you agree then that there needs to be a certain amount of advocacy on the part of teachers, if I've understood you correctly? Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I mean, I will turn to Marika now with her experience, on the policy side and with educators and teachers. I mean, what for you are the benefits of teachers being policy actors? And if perhaps you could draw on your experience in Georgia and give us examples, we would be very grateful.
Thank you for this question, because of course, when we are talking about participation and collaboration, it benefits both the process and the teacher itself. Why? Teacher knows what is happening on practical level, and on the other hand, for many years, educators are discussing why there is a gap between policies and practices. Yeah, and so engagement of the teacher is a kind of good trial and good move, to say so, to make smaller this misunderstanding between policy content and the implementation process. Because when they are practitioners are involved, maybe they are lacking sometimes knowledge how to advocate their ideas, or how to put it or pack it in a proper way, but they know for sure what will help this process or another, and so you have hands-on the process when you have teacher with you and with other, and of course it's a collaborative process. There is not only teacher but other people as well, and this collaboration makes the policy strong. Yeah, so the practical kind of views are there when teacher is engaged. On the other hand, it's very good for teacher because they see the horizon, what I mentioned in the beginning, and they are learning some things that maybe didn't know, and they see the process differently, and it's also influenced them, and it's also very beneficial for them to be part of the policy, and for the policy document. It's very good because later on teachers have identity and connection with this document, and it makes easier its implementation. When you are drafting something in the room and suddenly it should be implemented and it should be done with the hands of the teacher, it never works, and we experienced already this. And I like this approach of different means of communication. Nowadays it's a little bit easier if you want to show something, to really show with different channels. And of course, to conclude out of it, participation of the teachers is good for both, for the process and for the teachers themselves. And by the end of the day, you're getting quality of education, higher quality of education. That is our aim. And also we have to take into the consideration what was told by Olena and Roman as well, in this very changing world, yeah, kind of VUCA situations where everything is insecure. Teachers should be very much aware about these things, what is going on, especially related with the policy.
Okay, so what we have it then is, by this collaboration, teachers, government with other stakeholders, we've better policy, better practice. a better
Absolutely.
ecosystem, a policy ecosystem. And here I would like to bring in Roman. So, but what about the learners? Do they benefit from teachers' engagement in policy? Roman.
I hope so. Actually, when a teacher, he or she takes part in the policy development, he or she become more confident, and it's benefit for learners when the teachers know what they are doing, because they developed these solutions which they are implementing in the classroom. This first, and actually we have an experience when teachers, when learners were involved directly because if teachers are participating, he or she is taking into account naturally students, learners' opinion, but it also could be done directly. When we were working on study programs based on national core curriculum, even those youngest 6 years old kids were asked what they prefer to learn, and it was taken into account somehow. And now when we are going to complete our work with the upper secondary education, it's even more reasonable to involve learners directly, and or for example, if we are talking about adults, so teachers could be a mediator. Teacher involved into policy process could be a mediator between government and learners themselves.
Thank you, Roman. I will just briefly say hello to some more participants, members of our audience. We have Paolo from Italy, we have Abdi from Turkey, we have Thierry from France, and Shushanik, if I pronounced it correctly, from Armenia. I would just like to turn to Marika here, based on the point that Roman has brought up. He mentioned that teachers can be mediators. So that is actually a skill, a very valuable skill for teachers to have. Now, we've also had a question come up in our chat about what skills do teachers need to engage in policy. Is it a different skill set from those that they use in the classroom? Marika.
I think that there is general name of this skill set, and this is entrepreneurial skills, to say so. If it's crucial for every person, and especially for teacher, because if you're an entrepreneurial person, you mean that you have curiosity. Teachers should have this curiosity. It's what's going on, and they believe in that. If I want to change people's life here within the class, I have to have a lot of information. I have to know how to do this, yeah? And the policy papers and all the processes are very much linked with me. And so one of the features should be curiosity, and the second is kind of willingness and motivation, really to think, to see things from different angles, and to look and to dig deeper within the processes that what can influence education process for my students, and how can I address these messages towards policymakers, really to change something. If I don't like the system, if I don't like the books which are presented, for example, if I'm lacking some resources, yeah, and everything, many things can be addressed, but this courage should be there. And also, I think that very important thing is to have empathy, and to willingness to understand the emotions of your students and generally what is going on, because because I can't imagine good teacher who is not empathic towards others and who can't understand the emotions of students. And all these together, this willingness to change something, this entrepreneurial approach toward the topics and dilemmas within the process makes a stronger teacher and raises the chances for them to be participant within the policy. And also some technical skills also are needed. Maybe languages, to know different languages and to read new information is also very, very needed these days, because this new generation are in TikTok, in everywhere. They have huge information, and you have to organize and you have to be aware about these things as well. So that's what I can say just now.
Okay, thank you, Marika. So you were saying that teachers, they also have to be policy entrepreneurs. They need to be entrepreneurial teachers and also policy entrepreneurs. Okay, but teachers, they don't. I mean, they don't teach in isolation. And here I will turn to Roman, and unfortunately on a more somber note, but I mean, their skills also change depending on their context. I mean, Roman, you're talking to us from Ukraine. Would you like to share the situation, how teachers are coping at this moment, given the situation there?
Actually, 7 months ago, teachers and students and everybody in Ukraine found themselves in a very strange situation under war. So actually, war was begun 8 years ago, but anyway, this invasion was expected, but nobody believed that it happened actually. And actually, teachers and students and their parents found themselves in different parts of the globe. And actually, the first what was done, and colleagues in different countries were surprised. Then teachers immediately started to teach their students all over the world. So those who left in their own places, or those who move inside of or outside of Ukraine. So it was those experience which actually was accumulated during 2 years of COVID was helpful, and it actually allowed it to complete school year. But we still have these challenges, and now I think that one of the biggest challenge in the education area to secure all those the equal access to education as far as possible for all students, independently where they are in those territories which are temporarily occupied or abroad. And so teachers communities are rather ruined because teachers are moving around and around the world, and it's the challenge to support them to keep those communities, to rebuild them, and I think that within these circumstances, teachers are coping with the challenges which they didn't expect to cope any.
Thank you, Roman, for talking about this situation, which we understand is very painful. In fact, I would like to, if I may, refer to the video in which my colleagues have posted the link with your video, Roman, in which you said, teachers can inspire other teachers to become agents of change in their own communities. So I think this is very fitting with what you've just described to us. And now I'd like to turn to my colleague, Olena. To elaborate once more on her vast experience, and if Olena, if you could present to us some good practices that you know of about teachers engaging in the policy process in their local communities and improving education, as Marika has told us about.
Actually, I was thinking, where do I get the examples, from which country? And I think since we were talking about the situation in Ukraine now, I thought maybe I would just provide a couple of examples from there. Every country has numerous, very interesting, sparkling examples of teacher initiatives, and at different levels, at community level or at sectoral level, in vocational education, for example, or at national level very often. But one example which was striking to me, it was related to what Roman was saying, and actually you presented him as a coordinator of the working group at the national level that has been developing the national core curricula and the key competence-based education, national education standard in Ukraine. And we happened to support this process, and it was absolutely amazing how a group of approximately 70 teachers, and teachers, I mean, from different subject areas, from different levels of education, because this was a process of upgrading the approach in Ukraine to make it integrated learning outcomes based. So all the available at that time competence frameworks of the EU, which were DigComp and EntreComp, and the Council of Europe reference framework for civic and democratic competence, they were used in this process. And there were teachers who were looking at this in lifelong learning perspective, so in progression, applying the progression model that was behind these frameworks. And imagine that these people were working in very intense way, sometimes finishing discussions past midnight. And this was several years of work, and it still continues, this work. So is this direct impact on policy making? Of course, because they are creating policies by their own hands. And it's amazing how much enthusiasm and willingness was and has been in this process. But this was before the Russian aggression against Ukraine. And if you look what changed, how people behave, people don't wait for them to be told to do something. So everyone does what they could. Ukraine demonstrates absolutely incredible capacity to put together the voluntarily support to the society, to the country. If you look at the government, Ministry of Education is doing a fantastic job by coordinating all the possible foreign assistance, international aid, all the possible projects, and they are keeping it very well in their hands, allowing everybody to contribute, but overseeing all the initiatives and directing them in the way that is most needed. And if you look at the level of the of teachers, for instance, I remember one example. There was this professor of Uzhgorod National University, Fedor Shandor. He went to fight for his country next day after the aggression, this hot phase of the aggression, the 24th of February. He went next day to declare his willingness to fight. And he was teaching his students because he said he cannot allow himself to skip the lectures. So he was doing it in the breaks between fighting from the battlefield. And recently I saw one video when a lady who was teaching primary school students from what she was saying, and she was just the cameraman was approaching, probably with the phone, around the corner of a completely destroyed house. So this lady, this teacher, lives in this house. And then if you look around the corner, she was teaching. She had a screen on the wall, and she had a computer on the chair so that she could talk to the video camera, and she was teaching her students, explaining to them what was necessary for the content of the lesson. So these people don't wait to be asked to participate. They are making change today, and they're creating history. And just last thing I wanted to say, that from this end, from Italy, we're in Turin, of course, as ETF. I see how students are learning supported by these teachers. They're learning online Saturdays and Sundays. They don't want to be separated from their teachers and from their education institutions. So this all gives us hope that I saw the LinkedIn user was making a comment, why has this realization taken so long that teachers are taking part in the policy? I would say that I think we are speeding up, all of us, and I think that we have signs that it will be taking much faster, much shorter. If we would have a couple of minutes later, Denise, I could share maybe a couple of examples of tools that we have to support the teachers from the ETF side.
Yes, yes, certainly, yes. And I will just pause a moment to say hello to Nino from Georgia, to Inga from Georgia, and to Chin from Cambodia. Welcome and thank you for joining us. We're coming to the end of our chat. We just have some minutes left, and I would like to draw upon the teacher booster video, which you did, Marika. And since we discussed about teachers being entrepreneurial, and also we've heard from Olena that, and from Roman, that teachers, it's more than just a profession. It's a vocation, and they rise to the challenge in the most difficult of circumstances. So 3 points that you highlight in your video, Marika, is that to be entrepreneurial, teachers need to, first, train constantly. Perhaps you would like to present the other two. If you could tell me a bit more about these points. 2, have practical goals, and 3, cooperate with everyone. So could you perhaps elaborate on this, and specifically the 3rd point? So we've talked about teachers engaging in policy and cooperating with governments, but who else should they cooperate with?
First of all, if I may, I can't stop not to reflect what was said before, because I would 100% support Roman in Ukraine, because we know that very well. We experienced that, and I was very small one, but I remember teachers with students and with parents running through the mountains from Abkhazia. So it's very close to us, and it's very emotional, and it's a good example when we're talking about collaboration on teachers level, on politics level, on whoever level. We don't have another ways. We have to collaborate and not to be aggressive towards each other. That's what I believe in, because look, we cooperate because we want to have better education systems, yeah? And one part of the world is talking about artificial intelligence, about innovations in education. And Ukraine, in our region, teachers are teaching under bombs, yeah? It's big diversity and it's big inequity in the system. So that's why I'm saying that permanent, in my booster also, I said that permanent development and learning is a tool for bigger steps, and it goes to everybody, and cooperation is a basic for everything. Of course, between each other, they should cooperate between each other, teachers, and also internationally. We now see that how much we need support to each other, yeah? Teachers from different worlds should support each other somehow, sometimes with words, sometimes with tools, sometimes with, I don't know, just to keep them, like we try. A small portion of some teachers from Ukraine, for example, came to us as well, and we try somehow to keep them and to help them, yeah? And all kind of cooperation and support is very much needed, and it should be in children's and in adults' genes. And we have to talk and we have to cooperate with and when you ask to come back to your question, with whom? Yeah, with everybody who is important for the process. In vocational education system, for example, it's crucial to cooperate, to have bridges between teachers and, for example, private sector representatives, because their voice is very important. And also maybe it's very important sometimes when you are at school to cooperate very closely with parents and to really understand what they want, because sometimes there are big misunderstandings. That's why I think that cooperation, but it's not easy. In cooperation, everybody wants to show themselves. It's not real cooperation. It's when people are listening to each other and are learning from each other. And I think that the idea of the teacher booster kind of to come to the cycle was the same, to hear from each other what can be done. And we need more peace in this world, and it's not possible without education and cooperation. That's what it's not pathetic. It's how I feel it, at least. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you very much, Marika, for a very heartening response in the face of difficulties and also that teachers and students are facing. I would turn to Roman, ask if you have something to add, Roman, about the cooperation, because I know also from your video you talked a lot about the private sector, also teachers needing to cooperate with the private sector.
First of all, thank you, Marika, for your supportive words and for your support. And yes, the cooperation and the networking is very, very important. And regarding this issue of teachers moving abroad and so all over the world, so I think that we need not only to rebuild those, to keep and rebuild, to support those professional communities, but also to create new one, which are international professional community. When teachers are abroad, they need to find teachers there and to find the best solutions for those learners who are also stay in certain country, even temporarily, especially when it is temporarily, because they should also we should also secure the opportunity for those people to come back to Ukraine at the moment when it is possible for them, dependently on those on the circumstances in their own places. I think that in regarding this your specific question, the public-private collaboration, we have a rather specific situation in Ukraine when some private enterprises, I mean private school, for example, private school at general secondary education level, are like flagmans of the modern solutions. Usually they have a part of those business. They also have a mission to show others how the learning process could be organized accordingly with their new modern internationally recognized approach. For example, this Novopečerska Škola in Kyiv, which are also active in teachers' professional development. So they are introducing their own solutions for teachers. So in this area, I think that it's the most important point from our experience.
Thank you, Roman, and also for highlighting the importance of the diaspora, or at least also the temporary diaspora, that, you know, to maintain the cooperation and the networking for building for the future. I would address my last question to Olena. Olena, what next for the Teacher Booster?
I think we should produce the upgraded teacher boosters, because now we are we gained a lot of experience on how they work and what's most important. So next year there will be a couple of more videos taking into account the current momentum also, and the best practices that we managed to collect through the, for example, Innovative Teaching and Learning Award that we conducted as Creating New Learning initiative through the community of innovative educators. It was a huge success. We received so many interesting practices, and we are going to stream the final stage of this award. So also the practices will be available through the community, and we are working on the database of interesting initiatives, and we will be facilitating the contacts between practitioners, because community of innovative educators is designed not to only to feature those who are already innovative and famous and brilliant, but also all those who would like to learn how to be innovative. And this is also part of the learning for all of us as citizens that we're discussing now. Another thing which I wanted to mention, we try to leave a snapshot of the interesting experiences that we live through when we work in the partner countries of the ETF, and we prepared a publication which features our cooperation with Ukraine and with Georgia in the implementation of key competence-based reforms. So on the website of the ETF, it would be easily found. It's called Key Competence Lighthouse, and it features both countries who are represented today in this session. Also, another thing which I wanted to mention, which might be useful for the educators who are listening to us, we have recently developed the READY model. READY is a tool which features the most promising, most interesting, most important characteristics of the modern teachers or modern educators. And so this one would be also important to apply in different contexts. It's a model which is open for the users, and it will be possible to use it, apply according to the context and the needs. And we are happy to cooperate in this regard with our colleagues from the partner countries. And the last point I wanted to make is that we were talking today about the competences, key competences, which also include transversal skills and include a lot of different dimensions. And just if you look around, Marika was explaining how empathy is important. And indeed, empathy sometimes could be lost during the digital communication, but it's so important to keep focus on it. And also critical thinking. We all see the effect of propaganda. So critical thinking is critical for the modern people. And also we need to learn how to learn. We need career management, and we need to learn how to put ideas into action, which is part of the Entrecom competence. So to conclude, I think teachers should support each other in making teachers visible, making their success visible, and also acting as a community and participating in policy making.
Thank you, Olena, for that response. Very comprehensive. I will give the final word to a member of our audience, to Thierry from Thierry Lextray, who mentions the importance of the Erasmus program, the European Commission's Erasmus program, for the opportunities that it gives to teachers to engage in different projects, develop their competences, and also engage their learners, as Roman referred to earlier. I will close here. I want to thank our guests. They've been wonderful. Marika, Roman, Olena. It's been a fascinating discussion. Thank you so much. I invite all our viewers to consult the ETF website, www.etf.europa.eu. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.